The rumor mill is hard at work with news that Amazon is going to delay any demotions or firings of the showrunners until after the Emmy season because they don't want to sink the odds of them winning any awards and further damaging the show's reputation and furthermore Amazon's reputation, because this is what's paramount to them is they need a win out of this show because they have spent so much money that they just can't take a loss. They just can't. There is no way that they can take a loss on this show and come out of it with any sort of win attached to it. They have to be able to be seen as Charlie Sheen put it, winning all the time. I'm Tim Anderson, aka Renfill, the bearded dwarven princess, in all of her glory. Yes! And today we're diving into the latest Rings of Power rant discussion over a rumor once again. And for those of you who claim, this is my favorite by the way, and I'm going to call you out before we get into this video. For those who claim that this is somehow a clickbait article or a clickbait video because it's not discussing fact, if the thumbnail in question or the title of the video in question bring you to a place where the discussion is about what the thumbnail and the title of the video say they're about, it's not clickbait. It's only clickbait if it's not about the things that those things claim it's about. Are those enough things for you? So we are discussing this today. It's not clickbait. It's just something that's a rumor. Get over it. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Yeah, you know what to do. All right, let's get going. Apparently, and this is over at Bounding Into Comics, by the way. This place, I've come here a few times, probably about a dozen videos so far out of like 120 I've done. It's not the most factual of resources, and they generally have a very sort of we hate Amazon take on things, which I don't have. So I always take what they publish with a little grain of salt, but there is something fun to be had through most of their little articles and forays into the things Rings of Power, and this one is no exception. They talk about here that rather than being demoted for season 2, the latest word on the street suggests that Amazon is going to keep J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay in their current roles for at least one more outing in order to boost the first season's chance at securing an Emmy. Now, this is very important because the awards season is ahead of us. And if they want any chance of having the Rings of Power go down in history as a show that might not have gotten critical acclaim, but at least got some awards for best whatever, then they have to keep the brand from being tarnished. And as much as you might say that there's been a critical fan response skewing towards the negative, they can sweep that under the rug, or they're attempting to sweep it under the rug, by saying things like, oh, it's just a bunch of bots that are negative review bombing our show. And we've talked about that before in the past. Review bombing is a real thing in video games. It may have been a real thing for some of the reviews for their show, but having such an overwhelmingly negative review across the board continue to be the case. That's not bots. That's just the fact that from a fan, side of things, people aren't really caring for your show. Critical reviews have been a little bit different, but it's hard for critics to be, I would argue, truly critical of something when they're being paid. And there are quite a few paid outlets that have given extremely high praise to Rings of Power. That being said, I've been out there saying I'll give credit where credit is due, and I've given them some credit here and there. The show isn't a complete dumpster fire, and that's my opinion. I know some people just hate it to the point where they just refuse to even watch any of the episodes. I'm not in that camp. I think there are some redeemable qualities. However, do I think that this show is worthy of any Emmys? Not in a million years. I don't think there was anything about Rings of Power that is deserving of an Emmy. The writing was some of the worst I've ever seen, ever, and I've watched a lot of bad television over the years. Special effects could be something they could win on, because the VFX were quite good in some areas. So they could potentially win some awards for that, but I don't see any sort of best direction or best actors, best supporting actors, any of that. I just don't see that happening. But in order for them to even be in the running and to be in the race, they have to keep the show on the up and up, and they can't afford any additional negativity surrounding the show. Could happen. You never know. We'll see. Dun, 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 dun. Says, as previously reported, word of Payne and McKay's apparent relegation to the series writer room was first shared by noted film critic and industry insider and film founder Chris Gordon in appearance on the 314th episode of YouTube series Midnight's Edge. We talked about that. I'm not going to re-quote all of his stuff, but he said that theoretically they're going to be reduced from showrunners, so potentially just remaining in the writer's room, as Amazon is on the lookout for more experienced showrunners. He said that Amazon is well aware of the problems. What they're doing behind the scenes is freaking out. This is more of a failure than it could have anticipated. By the way, they said the critics speculate there were 3 reasons why Amazon is supposedly seeking to change the series production team: quality of the show, audiences aren't watching, so on and so forth. Where does it say here? Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Bounding into comics was contracted by an insider source whose identity is known to our editorial team but is being kept anonymous at their request with an update to the situation. Now, this is where I was going to say I also have an anonymous source. And this is the problem with anonymous sources. I can claim that my anonymous source is real. And in this case, if you know me well enough, you will believe that I have an anonymous source. And the fact is, actually, it's not that I have an anonymous source, but here's how this actually went down. Um, Someone who I stream with on a regular basis, and I'm going to keep this very vague, but anybody out there who wants to dig in, this can you'll know who this is. Someone I stream with on a regular basis, one of my friends that I've worked with for quite some time now, um, runs a D&D campaign live streaming once a week with a group of individuals. 2 of the individuals on that, I know of at least one. I think it's 2. I think it's a couple, but 1 or 2 individuals on his D&D campaign work at Amazon. And I remember 6 months ago we were having a discussion, and it was brought up that um, they had said during one of their pre-show chats that Amazon was in a panic because the first few episodes that had come out had been, or hadn't even come out yet. The first few episodes hadn't even come out yet. They were still in the press, and the marketing was failing so miserably that Amazon was panicking because they just didn't anticipate that the backlash from the fans was going to be what it is. Now, anybody who knows me and who has been around for a long time that knows that that's legitimate. But the problem with anonymous sources is that those of you who don't know me, who are just coming here for the first time, you're like, yeah, sure you do. Sure you have an anonymous source. Uh-huh. You know somebody who knows someone. Uh-huh. And so when we see things like Bounding into Comics saying that we were contacted by an insider source whose identity is known to our editorial team, is kept anonymous, we're all nodding our heads going, all right, yeah, we hope you do, but at this point we can look at this and understand that this is just a rumor, and if this is true, well, that's very interesting. But it says, according to this anonymous source, Amazon had decided, excuse me, that rather than sideline Payne and McKay immediately, the 2 will be kept on for 1 more season. The reason is that they reportedly want Emmy Awards, and thanks to the overwhelmingly negative optics a shakeup would generate for the series, sidelining the showrunners would spike any consideration in all categories. Unfortunately, there was a limit to the information the BIC's source was privy to, and as such, it's unknown whether they will actually retain creative control over the series as they did in season 1 in their continued roles, or as showrunners only in name only. So this goes back to that video we did on Amazon firing these 2, or the rumor that they had been fired. Even if it's true, Amazon is in such a position where they can't afford to take an L. They cannot have a loss on this. So anything they do is going to have to be done in a face-saving manner. They have to be able to do it in a way that's going to make it look like it's a win for them, even if it's not a win. And I wouldn't put it past them to just not really mention Payne and McKay having a reduced role until it's become, I would say let's just say, for example, and this is pure theory, I have no facts for this whatsoever, but let's say that leading into season 2, which has already started filming, let's say that they're going to be reducing their roles throughout season 2, and by the end of season 2 they are stepping aside for a more experienced showrunner. We're not going to get any wind of that until a long time after it's happened. We're still being told that it's 2 years out from season 2. Like they just started filming season 2, which means they've got 6 months of filming ahead of them, and then a minimum of 6 months of post, and then any pickups that are going to have to be done and reshoots, and then they get into the marketing. So I mean, we're a year and a half at least away from seeing a season 2. Um, a lot can happen in a year and a half. And we would never get wind of it because they're not going to want to risk season 2 not being what they need it to be. And they need season 2 to be even bigger than season 1. Because, yeah, 25 million viewers on the season premiere of season 1, they're going to want 30 million or more for season 2. So they're not going to do anything that's going to dust up and cause their golden goose to create anything other than a golden egg. It's an interesting theory in any case, and it falls up in there with the theory of did they actually get fired? Are they getting fired? Industry insiders say that it's supposedly true, according to one guy on the internet. This is another place that maybe it's true. Um, if it is true, I think it's very interesting. I find this to be credible, but like many conspiracy theories, it could just be nothing more than that. And that's one of the things we have to look at with a grain of salt and say, well, it's an interesting thing to talk about at the very least. And hopefully you've gotten to the end of this and are just understanding that, like all things Rings of Power, it just makes you shake your head and go, man, this could have all been avoided had they just made a good fucking show. That's all they would have had. That's all they had to do. That's all they had to do was follow the lore and make a good show, and we wouldn't be in this pickle. I wouldn't have nearly as much content to produce either. I would just have covered a good show and then gone off and done other things. But instead, we get to cover this debacle on a weekly basis, almost on a daily basis. But um, in any case, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. I'm in the chat as always on these premieres, so if you have questions, comments, etc., don't forget to ask away. Mondays in Middle Earth every Monday morning at 11 a.m. Central Time if you want to continue the discussion as we read through The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and The Silmarillion. And as always, if you want to support like all of these amazing people, drop a super chat right now. Join as a member of the Adventurers Guild. There's 3 different tiers. We do lots of fun stuff for our members. And after the fact, you can do super thanks. If you want to go above and beyond and get into the fantasy world that I've created with my wife and my brother, you can check out the Patreon page for that world map behind you, and you'll find more information about what we're doing over there because it's a multi-platform project. Till next time, stay safe, happy reading, and if you got any other things that you need to send my way, feel free to ping me on Discord or hit me up in YouTube. Either way, until next time, everybody, peace.